So I've been looking at the internet for the last week since the movie came out and seeing that it's getting pretty positive reviews, nothing too crazy, but it's doing pretty well. But what strikes me as odd is that despite the positive outlook people are having on it, I'm not really hearing much discussion. Sure, there are some articles on websites being published, but I'm talking about real actual discussion, not the dime a dozen shit that Screen Rant finds fit to put on their website. I mean, granted, I haven't gone looking for any of this stuff, but it's the MCU. Whether or not you're looking for it doesn't play a part into whether or not you're gonna see it. It's everywhere. Or at the very least, it should be. Now, I don't really have a lot of proof, or any proof for that matter, for the claim I'm about to make, but if I had to take a wild guess, use my utmost scientific mind, I'd say it's because most people are just kind of agreeing the movie was pretty meh. Unremarkable, maybe kinda good, maybe kinda bad, but overall just meh. I mean, I know I just said that the film was decently positively received, but that doesn't mean that people don't think it's meh and stop talking about it immediately. Just another Marvel movie. And I find that to be pretty upsetting. Not because I disagree with the sentiment. Oh, no. I wholeheartedly agree that this was pretty meh to kinda bad. Just another Marvel movie to throw on the pile. No, I find it upsetting because this movie, for all intents and purposes, should not have been bad, it should not have been meh, and it most certainly should not have been forgettable. This movie should have been one of the best MCU movies, and it damn well could have been. I honestly, truly believe that this movie could have been on the same level as Winter Soldier had they gone in a different direction. Before I go over what I think they could have done to make this one of the great Marvel movies, I would like to go over what it is that's actually dragging the film down, as well as giving credit where credit is due. Pointing out these flaws will encapsulate the majority of Part 1, whereas Part 2 will be where we actually go over the main changes. That should be out sometime in the next week. So without further ado, here's a ton of shit I disliked about this movie. Who the hell is this arms dealer dude? He doesn't have a real purpose, he comes out of nowhere, and suddenly he and Black Widow are just best of buds. There is no damn way that Dreykov or his daughter survived that explosion. If you have some cybernetic chip that lets you turn people into a Taskmaster, why the hell don't you give that to all of your widows who are at your every command? While it is funny that Red Guardian keeps getting cut off before his emotional moments, he never gets anything. Like, cool, that was funny the first 5 times, but could you give him something eventually? No, we just settled for nothing. While I would say the comedy in this film is usually on point, the uterus joke goes on for too long, the helicopter joke is predictable and looks like garbage, and we'll get to that in a moment. This film has multiple instances of a character who wants to kill another character just deciding not to pull out their gun, or just making the decision to stand there and do nothing. Maybe I'm just not an expert on how pheromones work. I mean, I'm not. I'm wholeheartedly willing to admit that. But couldn't you just walk to the other side of the room or leave that room and shoot him from the doorway or something? And even if it works 100% the way it works in the film, Dreykov's supposed to be pretty smart. Can't he tell, hey, I just told this person who wants to kill me that the only way they can hurt me is if they can't smell me, and now they're trying to break their nose. I should probably shoot them with the gun I just took off of them. Why is the Red Room a flying sky fortress? How long has it been that? Cause it damn well cannot have been that the whole time. That's not what it looked like in Age of Ultron. And Milena talks about how she went through 4 cycles before Natasha was even born. So this thing would be like a 50-year-old sky fortress. And how has no one seen this before? Ross shows up immediately after this encounter, meaning they were probably on American soil. How did no one, S.H.I.E.L.D., Stark, anyone detect this? Especially when S.H.I.E.L.D. knows just how dangerous the Black Widows are. Why couldn't it just be an underground bunker? Or the building doesn't matter, the organization just moves around a lot. So there have been numerous Black Widows on the good side, and Taskmaster's been on the good side since 2016, and they are never brought up, ever? Hell, I'm pretty sure that they mentioned that this whole, like, mind control thing that they found an antidote to was based off the Winter Soldier program. Wouldn't Cap be interested to hear about that? Speaking of Cap, the ending of this implies, no, doesn't really imply, it basically just outright says, that Widow had the ability to contact Cap at any point. Why doesn't she? He could be kinda useful, don't you think? And can somebody please explain to me the timeline of this film? So it begins after the Siberia fight in Civil War. We know that because in Civil War, right after Natasha leaves, Tony leaves to go to the raft where Ross is. Right after that, he goes to Siberia, and at the beginning of this movie, Ross is tracking down Widow, so it has to have taken place after that. And this movie probably takes place over the course of about a week, maybe? And then it says 2 weeks later, and she's about to do the prison bust. Are you telling me that the Siberia fight in Civil War happens nearly a month before Cap does the prison break? It sure as hell doesn't feel like that in the film. Side note, it seems like after the fight with Taskmaster, Ross is about to capture Widow. How does she get away? How are they able to get Yelena to conceal that knife? She is a famous assassin. You know what she's capable of. You would double, triple, and quadruple check her for any weapons. Why the hell would the prison let Red Guardian just walk around unsupervised? He's a super soldier. He shouldn't be allowed to leave his damn cell. Is it not heavily implied in the other films that Widow had nothing until she got the Avengers, and that's why they mean so much to her?
I used to have nothing. And then I got this. This job. This family. And I was better because of it.
Doesn't it kind of soften that if we find out she had a family the whole time, and one she went back to for a while in 2016? Alright, that's good enough for now. Video's already late as it is, don't want to spend too much more time thinking about the problems. With one exception, I am yet to talk about an entire scene, because it deserves its own damn section to talk about. From what I have witnessed, this scene is universally agreed upon to be the worst section of the film. When I witnessed this for the first time, who is texting me? Apparently there is a severe blood shortage. Thank you, Red Cross. When I saw this scene, my opinion of the movie dropped. Noticeably dropped. You already know what scene I'm talking about, so let's get right into it. The after credit scene of Black Widow has so much wrong with it, I am actually impressed. But to truly, honestly, and wholeheartedly understand why this is so bad, you need to know a little bit of the story behind Avengers Endgame. I have come to the realization that I am apparently part of a minority in the amount of people who think that Black Widow was handled excellently in Endgame. I didn't think that was controversial, but apparently it has become controversial. One of the biggest complaints about what happened to Black Widow is she never gets some sort of memorial or funeral or whatever, like Tony does. Never mind the fact that Tony's the main character of the series, so of course he's gonna get something bigger, but you know what? Fine. I guess that makes sense. Except I was always under the impression that this scene with the 5 Avengers talking about her was her memorial service. Regardless of whether or not people saw it that way, they wanted something more. And from what I've heard, people find that this after credit scene where Yelena goes and sits by the grave for a moment is apparently what they wanted. I do not understand this at all. On paper, both scenes are pretty emotional. On one hand, you have 5 of her closest friends sitting next to the facility in which she dedicated her life to making amends for her mistakes, all mourning her death. On the other hand, you have her sister visiting the town which she loved so much as a child and visiting her grave. Both pretty good until you actually start to add detail. See, the Avengers' relationships with Black Widow were built up over numerous films. Thor is the only one who didn't really have a relationship with her, but then again, we also got this scene.
I don't think we should be focusing on Loki. That guy's brain is a bag full of cats. You could smell crazy on him.
I've care how you speak. Loki is beyond reason, but he is of Asgard, and he is my brother.
He killed 80 people in 2 days.
He's adopted.
So that's something.
Thor, report on the Hulk?
The gates of hell are filled with the screams of his victims. But not the screams of the dead, of course. No. Wounded screams, mainly whimpering, great deal of complaining, and tales of sprained deltoids and gout.
On the other hand, we didn't know Yelena existed or could potentially exist until this film, nor did we know that Black Widow gave two shits about Ohio, perhaps becoming the first person in human history to give even a single shit about Ohio. These elements were introduced in this film for its own payoff. That doesn't work. Imagine if we got another Star Wars movie where it was revealed that Luke hung out on Geonosis for like 5 years and he really, really loved it, and then we find out that there's a memorial to him built on that planet. We never had any implication that that could be the case before now. Also, I'm assuming it's a small little, like, family-made monument or something. I'm guessing. Because if it's not, one, that's way too small a memorial for how big of a deal Black Widow was. And two, she's not buried there. We know she's not buried there. Clint doesn't come back with the body, but he does come back with that taser bracer thing. We know he went back to the body, and he didn't come back with it, so she's probably buried on Vormir in a different reality. But if you found it emotionally resonant, that's fine. I'm not gonna take that away from you. Because the film is going to. This moment, which even I thought was a nice moment, just not as good as the one in Endgame, is immediately undercut by the worst joke in the entire movie. Discount Nick Fury has allergies. That's it. We have the gravesite of one of our main heroes being visited, and we decided we need to interrupt it for a joke about allergies. Brilliant. And then if that's not enough, we get this whole thing about, oh, you need to kill Clint Barton because he killed your sister. First of all, little nitpick here, but there's no way in hell that they would have a picture of him in the Ronin costume. They didn't figure out he was a Ronin until Endgame happened, and that's when he drops the identity. Secondly, and this one's actually kind of important, why? Oh, we'll understand next episode of the Marvel show. They'll reveal it soon. Yeah, well, it makes no sense here, and you know what? If further context is provided and it gets better, I swear I will make an entire video talking about how I was wrong. But, as it currently stands, this is stupid. Clint was devastated when he came back without Natasha. He was very vocal about how he wanted to be the one to go. He wanted to be the one to have to die. She should have been the one to live. How do you twist that into, oh, he killed her? I will admit, my rage at that Hawkeye thing is a lot more to do with the fact that I'm a huge Hawkeye fan, and I'm looking forward to this show, and the show is going to be based on my favorite run of Hawkeye comics, the one by Matt Fraction. And this is not part of it, meaning we're going to divert time away from the storyline that I know and love for something that is potentially really, really stupid. This is more like a preemptive you fucked up. Okay, so I'm currently recording this. I was actually in the middle of recording when all of a sudden a buddy of mine sent me a link to a news article that he found from thedirect.com. Black Widow writer responds to fan disapproval over Taskmaster twist. I don't know that this has any place in my video, but I'm gonna read this out anyways. Basically, this guy, Eric Persson, there's my buddy, Eric Persson, he was on a podcast, right? The Phase Zero podcast, and he had this to say, quote, I made the mistake of looking in direct message requests, and someone said, quote, I don't mean to be out of line, but Taskmaster was the biggest betrayal of my life, end quote. And I was just like, I got mad for a second, and then I was like, well, you've had a pretty good life then. If that's the worst thing that's ever happened to you, then you should be psyched. Cause like, you know, someone in a movie wasn't who you wanted them to be? End quote. He goes on to say things that, I'm not gonna do the quote thing anymore. He goes on to say, you know, he understands that in the comics it's Tony Masters, but it's like, can this guy somehow not just be a goon? Like, I don't want, like, that's a weird way to end that sentence. So it was like, oh, he needs to be tied into all this stuff. Oh yeah, Dracov's daughter. We should use that and stuff. That's stupid. That's utterly ridiculous. And the fact that you're going to, like, get mad for a second because someone said, oh, biggest betrayal of my life. Come on, dude. You've been in this business for a while. You've been witnessing it. People don't like when you change things from the source material to the main shit. Don't do it. It just doesn't work. Well, sometimes it works, but, like, most of the time, it's just a bad idea. idea, and you're gonna piss off the fans. So don't fucking do it. It's a bad idea. Also, she doesn't have to be. Like, Taskmaster also doesn't have to be Dracov's daughter. Like, you could have him be a bounty hunter that got hired in. You could have it be, like, Dracov's son or another daughter or something, because, like, oh, fucking, you know, we kind of killed the other one. You could have something like that. You could have Taskmaster be, like, the person who led the assault on Budapest and was fucked up by Clint and Natasha. You could do so much, but you chose illogical and stupid. Great choice there, Disney. You know, at least it's consistent. Of course, the film's not all bad. As I said, I did appreciate most of the humor. The soundtrack was pretty good, even if it was forgettable. The action was alright, aside from, you know, characters not doing things every now and then when they should be using their guns. I thought it was pretty good. Nothing's really standing out as terrible. Of course, the acting was on point. That and the effects were basically guaranteed to be good. But despite there being good things about it, I shouldn't be in a situation where I'm naming the few good things in the film. So, that's the end of part 1. Like I said, part 2 should be out in the next week and a half, depending on how long that takes to finish up. If there's anything that I happen to get wrong, or if there's just any part of the video that didn't really work that you'd like to let me know about, please leave your